The top 5 football boots of 2020. Brought to you by Pure Grip Socks. Available at puregripsocks.com. Just $14.99 a pair. puregripsocks.com. Links down below. Here are the rules. The boots, meaning the first colorway, had to release in 2020. If they came out in 2019 and continued to come out throughout this year, unfortunately, they're ineligible to be on this list. So something like a Nike Mercurial Vapor 13 Elite, as an example. Obviously, it's a great boot. You could put it in the top 5 at any spot depending on what your preferences are, but it's not eligible to make this list because it technically came out last year. Limited edition releases are not eligible. If it wasn't readily available, it simply doesn't count. This list has absolutely nothing to do with colorways, and perhaps most importantly, this is just about the best boots from whichever brand is making them. If you had a really good year, you could have multiple boots from the same brand. Some brands, some big ones by the way, will not be included on this list. It's unfortunate, but hey, make better boots. I should also mention that if you're interested in any of the boots that I'll be talking about in this video, there will be links to all 5 down below in the description where you'll be able to pick them up with some SR4U coupon codes, of course, below their normal retail prices. So we're gonna get right into my picks very shortly, but feel free to leave your own top 5 picks for the best boots of 2020 down below in the comment section. Also, if you guys do end up enjoying this video and perhaps would like to see more year-end boot videos where I highlight the best and possibly even the worst, don't forget to support this one with a like and leave your suggestions for what you'd specifically like to see down below in the comment section. And of course, if you're new here watching for the first time and don't want to miss out on weekly content on everything football boots, make sure you hit that subscribe button along with the little bell notification so you get notified when the next new video goes live. Now, I think there's going to be quite a few people stunned at what I've picked at the 5 spot because to my knowledge, if I'm remembering everything correctly, and I do forget a fair amount of things, I don't think I've ever put a pair of laceless football boots on a year-end top 5 boots video, but this year I have. The Adidas X Ghosted Plus Laceless is a phenomenal pair of football boots. It's impressive how good they actually feel. This Mirage Skin upper is paper thin, kind of making the return for synthetic uppers on speed boots in general, which a lot of people have missed since the F50 Adizero days, and since Nike went away from Teijin synthetic on the Mercurial series. This feels just like that, and because of the laceless design, it's super thin and consistent across the entire foot, really giving you arguably the best barefoot sensation of any football boot currently available. Given that they fit you properly, the shape of the boot and the overall lockdown is way better than any other laceless boot that I've worn previously. The technicality of the upper and complexity of how everything is put together is super impressive, and it just works. Not to mention the new speed frame outsole with the new stud pattern and the Carbitex insert in the forefoot is arguably the best sole plate stud pattern combo that I've ever used on a pair of football boots. The responsiveness you get from this carbon fiber insert trumps any previous carbon fiber implementation on a pair of football boots, and not only looks extremely cool, it feels absolutely fantastic. So if you're on the market for a pair of laceless speed boots, don't look anywhere else. This is the one you should buy. The modern football boot industry is very much about change for the sake of change, and that's both the fault of the brands as well as us as consumers, because we tend to gravitate towards things that are new, things that are hyped up. It's very difficult for brands to maintain interest around a product that never changes. However, there is one exception to this rule, and that comes from a brand like Mizuno, who has been more or less making the exact same boot for an entire decade until 2020, when it finally saw a redesign, and what a redesign it was, the made in Japan Mizuno Morelia Neo 3 Beta. I would make the argument that Mizuno knows their customer base better than any other brand, and they know that their customers don't want change for the sake of change, but it's definitely safe to say that the Morelia Neo 2, which of course replaced the Morelia Neo 1, almost the exact same football boot, was due for a little bit of a refresh, and that's exactly what the Neo 3 Beta is. It maintains the same incredible quality of kangaroo leather through the toe box and forefoot area that seems to have gotten even better quality, if that's possible, but then replaced the somewhat kind of dated and arguably cheap feeling synthetic leather material through the midfoot, as well as its traditional tongue, for a knitted textile base with a one-piece upper design that honestly just works extremely well. It fits that much better. I think the boot is significantly more comfortable because of this redesign. They maintained the classic look and silhouette, which means that the boot, while being very different in terms of every element being tweaked in one way or another, it still has the same general styling of a classic Morelia Neo, and the sole plate and stud pattern, again, despite looking quite similar, really does feel that much better. They're still super light, they're still extremely well made. They're definitely on the pricier side of things, but if you're a fan of the Mizuno brand and you're a fan of the Morelia Neo, it's safe to say that this is the best variation of that boot they've ever made. If there's one thing that Adidas Speed Boot fans have been screaming for basically the last 5 years, it is the return of the F50 Adizero, which for those that don't know was killed off and kind of unofficially replaced with what was called the Adidas X line. Well, in 2020, while we didn't get the F50 name back, we definitely got the core DNA of the F50 back in the form of the Adidas X Ghosted .1. This is just my own personal opinion, of course, but I think from X16 to X19 generations, there have been some pretty good speed boots out of the Adidas brand. However, when you compare it to their main competitor, the Nike Mercurial series, there's an argument to be made that they were a little bit lacking in the technical side of things, which is typically what gets people excited about football boots, and objectively, you could say that the peak performance characteristics weren't necessarily as good as the Nike alternative. In 2020, the X Ghosted .1 totally changes that and really makes a return to a lot of the core DNA that so many people loved about the F50 Adizero series, specifically the ones with synthetic uppers, because we've yet to see a leather upper variation of this boot. That would be very cool. Adidas, please make that. Nonetheless, the synthetic upper, which is called Fluoroskin on the .1 variation, is a thin textile base, but it's basically a plasticky type of synthetic, similar to what we had in the F50 days, really offering you this true barefoot sensation, certainly thinner and more raw feeling in comparison to Nike's alternative at the moment, the Mercurial Vapor 13 Elite. The lacing system allows for much better lockdown and overall responsiveness when compared to the X Ghosted Plus, which I also had on this list. Despite the uppers being very different, they do end up feeling quite similar. And then of course, the addition of this new speed frame sole plate with the Carbitex insert and the new stud pattern just makes this way more aggressive than arguably any speed boot we've ever seen out of the Adidas brand. If you like that raw, super thin synthetic feel, this is currently the speed boot to have. Going into 2020, I had my eye on one line of football boots in particular, and that was the Predator series, which saw its return in 2018, but was honestly more of a glorified sock boot, a continuation of what they were doing with the Ace line, rather than a true Predator model. A Predator was always about super aggressive, super bold, extreme design, and in 2020, they gave us that, and not only is the design extreme, but the performance is unlike any other football boot that you can currently buy. At the 2 spot, I have the Adidas Predator 20.1 Low. And I picked the .1 Low variant because I think most people would agree that this is the best version of the boot. If you prefer the mid, then the 20.1 mid is equally as good. It just adds on a collar. And the laceless 20 Plus version, while it is different in some ways in terms of having more rubber elements as well as technically having them in a different shape, I think that the lack of lockdown from the laceless design does diminish the overall quality of the boot. Nonetheless, the 20.1 Low is not exactly the Predator that hardcore fans were asking for. We would still love to see a variant of this boot with a leather upper, which we did see in limited edition form on the 20 Plus, so we know it's possible. Nonetheless, the highlight feature of this boot are these rubber spikes that are scattered across the entire upper, something that Adidas is calling demon skin. And the amount of extra grip that this provides on the ball when controlling the ball, when shooting the ball, is so different from anything else that you can get from any other football boot, and something that, while it takes a little bit of getting used to, I think genuinely has its benefits depending on what your preferences are when it comes to grip levels on the ball. The upper could be a little bit softer, it could be leather like I mentioned, but the overall fit and lockdown is on par with pretty much any top-end model. And then the sole plate and stud pattern, while nowhere near, I think, as good as what's currently featured on the X Ghosted series, it's a huge improvement over what they were doing previously with the Predator 18 and 19. So just in terms of incorporating this very extreme design with these rubber spikes all over the place and having it work so well, it is seriously probably the most distinctive football boot in terms of feel and performance versus anything else currently on the market. Which brings us to the SR4U #1 best football boot of 2020, brought to you by PureGripSocks.com. The honor goes to the Puma Ultra 1.1. Safe to say that 2020 was not a great year for a lot of things, but it was a great year for football boot releases. And the reason why I have the Ultra 1.1 as the top boot of the year is, one, it's extremely good and does pretty much everything very well. I would make the argument that this is easily the best speed boot ever to come out of the Puma brand. But I think what's most impressive about this is the upper sole plate and weight combination that this boot has on offer. I think back to the 2010 F50 Adizero, which has obviously been in recent news because of all the limited edition remakes, but that's a football boot that changed the industry because of how light it was. And this is almost on par with those, give or take 5 to 10 grams. They fall under the 6-ounce mark, so right around 160 grams or so, which basically makes these boots feel weightless on your feet, just like those F50s did an entire decade ago. Not to mention, when you compare these to that OG F50, they're way more comfortable. This Matrix Evo upper is really impressive in terms of feeling very flexible and very sock-like on your feet, but at the same time, really being super thin and giving you this barefoot sensation on the ball. It also provides more grip than you think it would based on how it looks. The lockdown with the laces tied tight is really good. It features a shape that is gonna fit just about anybody, which is typically not what we see with a lot of speed boots. The comfort is great, especially considering how light they are, and the sole plate and stud pattern is a huge improvement over everything that we've seen previously from the Puma brand, and just provides really aggressive bite and traction in pretty much any situation on firm natural grass. Not to mention, it is the cheapest football boot on this list at full retail. So in terms of value for money, really difficult to beat these. So there you have it, folks. Those are my picks for the top 5 best football boot releases of 2020. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you have any questions? Feel free to leave all of that down below in the comment section. As I said earlier, if you're interested in any of these boots below their normal retail prices, you can check out the links down below. That'll take you to the review pages on my website, where everything that's available for the lowest possible prices can be found. If you aren't subscribed to the channel already, make sure you hit that subscribe button along with the little bell notification so you get notified when the next new video goes live. Follow me on social media if you aren't already. All of that can also be found down below in the description. And other than that, guys, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.